And the learning objectives that we will be addressing are to explain how carrying capacity is regulated by abiotic and biotic factors, and then finally to analyze factors affecting the size and growth of human populations. So we're going to start with the first learning objective today, and we'll be looking at carrying capacity, and we'll be looking at abiotic and biotic factors that affect the carrying capacity of a population. So if a population, maybe a population is just starting out, has ideal conditions, there's tons and tons of resources, lots of food available, lots of space, that population will undergo what's called exponential growth, where the population will continue to grow and double. So if we start down here, if we're looking at this graph, we have the population on the left, and on our x we have time. So this is a bacterial population, so if we start at time 0, let's say we have 1 individual, that individual reproduces, we have 2, and then 4, and then so on. And as the population gets larger, as it doubles, it's going to be growing at a very, very high rate. And this gives us this J-shaped curve illustrating exponential growth. If we compare the bacteria population to an elephant population, we can see the same pattern of growth, but if you notice, our x-axis is showing a different time scale. So here we're looking at hours, because bacteria can reproduce like every 20 minutes, but elephants reproduce at a much slower rate. So here we have going up to 750 years, and here we have just 6 hours. But again, they're still showing the same pattern of growth, which is exponential. Now this will occur as long as there are unlimited resources. Most populations don't have unlimited resources. So these are individuals are reproducing at a constant rate. So they're constantly, if you have, they're doubling their population in a given amount of time. So if the resources are limited, if there's not enough resources, or as the resources become less available, that growth of the population is either going to slow or it's going to stop. Population will continue where individuals are reproducing, but if the number of deaths and number of births are equal, then the population growth stops. It's not going to increase in the population. And so this will happen after a period of exponential growth when a population gets to the point where those resources are less available. And so we get what's called logistic growth. And with logistic growth, we get a period of exponential growth. So we get that J-shaped curve going up. Again, we have the population size over here, and we have time down here. So get this exponential growth, but what ends up happening is as the population grows, it reaches a point where there are not enough resources to continue this growth pattern. And so now the population growth stops. So there's still individuals reproducing, but the deaths and births are going to be equal, and so we get this kind of plateau here. And if we look across at this, from this plateau and carry this over, and we can see the number of organisms, and we would consider that the carrying capacity. That's the amount of organisms that this environment can sustain. The resources available allow for them out this amount of organisms in that population. And if we look at it, the things that will keep a population at that carrying capacity are things that are going to limit the resources. We can divide them into abiotic factors and biotic factors. In the abiotic, whenever you put an A or an AN in front of a word, you negate the word or make the word negative, not that whatever it happens to be. And biotic is living things. So we're studying biology, we're studying living things. So abiotic would be the non-living components in an ecosystem. The biotic would be all the living components of an ecosystem. So these are the types of factors that can cause that population growth to stop or slow down and reach that carrying capacity. Okay, so we can look at limiting factors as things that either are affected by the number of individuals in the population or not. And so density-dependent factors, what this means is these are density, the number of individuals in a given area, dependent factors. So the size of the population is going to affect these factors. And these are kind of 4 groups of density-dependent factors. Also, these are generally biotic factors. So competition between different organisms, predation by different organisms, parasitism by different organisms. So these are the biotic factors generally. So if we look at competition, if there's more individuals in a particular area, then that means that area is going to be crowded and there's more competition for all of the materials that are available. And that competition will lead to a population reaching that carrying capacity. Another is predation. So, and this is a very well studied area of biology, but we can look at the predator population and we can look at the prey population. In this case, we have moose, which would be the prey, and we have wolves, which are the predators. And down here is the time, and so over here we have the population of wolves, and over here we have the population of moose. And you'll be making a graph very similar to this if you haven't done so already. And you're going to be looking at a deer population. So here we have the moose population, and we can see that the moose population is growing and growing, and eventually it kind of is leveling out here, and then it's starting to drop again, and drop, and drop, and now it's coming back up again, and it's getting a little spiky. So this moose population is fluctuating. Well, the moose population is fluctuating along with the wolf population. So the wolf population's in blue, and that is also fluctuating. So what's happening is as the number of moose increase, now the wolves have more food, so their carrying capacity is higher because they have more resources available to them. So they start to go up in numbers, but as they start to go up in numbers, they're preying on the moose, which makes it so the moose, now their carrying capacity is lower, and so that drops down off of them. And the wolves now don't have enough food, and their population drops. So these are factors that are density dependent. It's going to depend on the number of organisms in that area. And this predator-prey relationship is what I just showed you. Okay, another is parasitism, and parasitism leads to disease. Disease can be caused by other things besides parasitism. So parasites, the number of individuals in a population, if there's a disease that comes through or some kind of parasites that come through, the more individuals in the population, the faster that disease will get spread within that population. So that would be considered a density dependent factor as well. And remember that a parasite is something that lives on or in another organism and causes harm to that organism. That would be a parasitic relationship. There are also density independent factors, and this is going to affect a population regardless of the population size. Generally, these are abiotic factors. So things like weather, any kind of unusual storm that comes through. If there are two islands and one island has more individuals on the island, the density population is denser there than another island. When the storm comes through, it's not going to aim towards the population where there's higher population. It has nothing to do with the size of the population. Any kind of natural disasters, seasonal cycles, winter, summer, that could be a dry season, wet season, depending on the environment. And then also human activities. We do different things that are going to affect population sizes, like damming up rivers and cutting down forests and building roads and cutting through different areas, cutting through different habitats. So all of these would be abiotic factors, things that are not biological, and they would also be density independent. They're not dependent on the population size. So that is explaining how carrying capacity is regulated by abiotic and biotic factors. Our next lecture will be on analyzing the factors affecting the size and growth of human populations in particular.